Welcome to Thai Chats, hosted by Van Learning. These conversations are centered on the trends in education shaping today and tomorrow. Leading the conversation is our host, Dr. Bryce Johnson. Bryce recently served as Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction for the Blue Springs School District. With 28 years in education, he has served as a teacher, assistant principal, principal at both elementary and middle schools, and director of technology, and now joins the Van Learning team. Bryce, what trends in education are we focusing on today?
Today, we're very fortunate to have Roberto Rosas join us on the chat today. He currently serves as Director of Multilingual Education in his current district. So, Roberto, thank you very much for joining the chat today. We really appreciate you being here and being a part of this conversation and collaboration around topics that we're all facing in education and trying to develop strategies to move in a path forward for success for kids and staff. So, thanks again for joining us today. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for the invitation, Bryce. It's my pleasure to be here with you and to be able to chit chat about these topics.
That's great. Well, if you kind of just before we jump into the topics for the day, if you could just share a little bit about your role as director of multilingual education there in your school district and kind of some of the responsibilities and elements of that programming that you lead and oversee.
Absolutely. So I started my career as a bilingual teacher in elementary, and then from there I kind of moved up to an instructional coach position to help teachers, and then from there I was able to be in this current role of director. So currently I'm in charge of the bilingual education program, one way as well as a two-way program at the elementary level, as well as the ESL throughout the whole district, and then also the language other than English courses that students must take in order to get their degree once they finish with high school. So within all those aspects, I also oversee the recruitment of bilingual teachers and the training.
That's great. That's a lot. That's a big job. You got a lot going on there. So,
Yes.
well, thank you for your work in that space. That's super important for our districts and to support students across all of our systems. And so, what we're going to do today is jump into some conversation around Title I and Title III funding, and certainly those aspects land in your space with what you kind of just described in your role as a director there. And then we're going to spring into some conversation around recruitment and retention of teachers and staff. And then specifically learn a little bit about your thoughts and strategies in the bilingual space, specifically with those types of teachers and resources for kids. So great topics today. Let's get right into the title piece a little bit. So if you want to talk a little bit, Roberto, about just kind of quickly for any of our listeners, this Title I and Title III, and maybe what are the differences between the two, just at kind of a high level, that'd be great.
Sure. So Title I and Title III are federal programs under the Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA. They're basically designed to support students who face barriers to academic success. And the biggest difference is Title I focuses on improving academic achievement for students with or from low-income families. And then Title III supports emerging bilingual students. That's what we refer to as English learners here in Texas. Basically helping them develop English proficiency while accessing grade level academic content. So one of the biggest things that we have to kind of clarify is some of the misconceptions that might occur. Like with Title I, some of the misconceptions might be that only certain type of students receive or qualify for this. In reality, Title I is basically there to support the entire campus or programs, depending on the model used. So within that, we also focus a lot on small group instruction so that it's very targeted to the needs of those students that are requiring additional support. And we always emphasize that these title funds are meant to be supplemental resources.
Can you just share a little bit about what approach do you all use in your district to determine a focus area for Title I and Title III funding?
Yeah, absolutely. So our primary focus is student center. It's always student center. So what we typically do is we determine based on data and feedback from the community and parents, as well as the teachers and students themselves, actually, on what aspects of education we can improve on with this type of additional support that we can provide. And based on their feedback, we take a look at it and see what's feasible within the scope of our budgets. And then based on that, we try to determine which programs are going to provide the biggest impact for the students as well as the campuses and teachers.
Right. So, what are some examples of some of those supplemental materials that maybe you guys have utilized in that space that maybe came from the title funding source?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one example that we have used with a lot of success has been the use of technology in regards to translating devices. That sometimes the teacher, especially with our ESL program, they might not be fluent in the language that the student speaks. So, using this resource provides them with the ability to communicate clearly with the student and pinpoint exactly where is it that the student is having difficulty learning the lesson. And this typically happens after the whole group instruction takes place, so that way the teacher as well as the student feel comfortable enough having a chit chat either one-on-one or with a small group to kind of determine what would be the best approach to support them in order for them to learn the topic that they're being covered. So fortunately, these devices, the students are also able to take them home with them. So that's a great resource that the parent can also use whenever they're trying to help the student with the homework, for example.
Can you talk a little bit about, you mentioned that community aspect where certainly you had a lot of feedback that comes into, okay, how do we utilize Title I and Title III? You referenced uh, many folks in your system that had some input into that. Do you have any certain structures that you all use in your district to do that? Or how do you kind of choreograph getting all that feedback from all those members of your community?
Yeah, so we actually take a two-pronged approach for this. First, we have a meeting with actual uh, people and particularly parents, for example, for Title III of EV students. And in those meetings, we kind of guide the conversations, but we leave it very open for them to share what their concerns are, what they're seeing in their schools, what they would like for their students to be experiencing. And then based on that information, we'll also send out a virtual um, questionnaire for families to fill out, mainly because sometimes they feel more comfortable doing it in the privacy versus one-on-one in front of us. So we definitely want to receive good feedback on that. And um, once we have that information, we kind of combine it and we take a look at it and see if there's anything that overlaps. And typically, whenever that does, that's usually one of the areas that we prioritize first, and then we work our way down. So within that scope, we put together after school tutoring events, sometimes also with the help of the teachers. So we get the input of the teachers saying like, hey, which of these students might really benefit from additional support after school, for example, and as well as providing events that are geared towards our community, focusing a lot on, for example, Latino, our parents that want to improve their English acquisition as well as supporting their students, particularly whenever the student comes home with homework that perhaps they are not able to assist because of the language barrier. So a lot of times we also provide those scaffolding resources as well as support so that the parent feels involved in the process of their child's education.
What advice would you give to a leader out there that maybe they just got hired for the role of Title I, Title III coordinator, somebody that's going to lead this work, director, particularly in a bilingual, multilingual scenario? What advice would you give them as
It's really fundamental to ensure that the approach aligns with evidence-based practices and that program guidelines are aligned, because that's gonna keep you out of the hot water.
for sure, for sure.
Definitely. And also keeping in mind being flexible because sometimes the data might come back and you might have a great idea, but the data's not there to reflect that success. And you know what? You have to, pivot from there. So not being afraid to use that information to reinforce the program or your decision based on the data that you achieved from this experience that you have. So definitely keeping the flexibility in mind is a great advice that I would recommend anybody in this position to kind of keep in mind.
Well, that's another great piece of advice, I think, for all leaders out there is reflect on your mechanism you may have in your school or your district to assess impact. And don't be afraid to modify that, to shift focus, because if something's not producing results, then that process needs to look at being retired and a fresh approach may be considered. So thanks for bringing that up. That's a super great point on that topic. Let's maybe shift a little bit and let's shift over to teacher recruitment retention a little bit, which is a huge topic that we're all facing across the entire country in our field. And you specifically live in that bilingual teacher space, I'm guessing. Probably all teachers, but really in that bilingual space. So if you could just share a little bit about what's the landscape of teacher recruitment look like right now in that bilingual teacher arena?
So teacher recruitment is critical because, like you said, schools across the country are facing a shortage in several key areas, especially those areas with high needs like special education, bilingual education. I think the joke around here is that to find a bilingual special education certified teacher is like the unicorn because they're
Right.
so rare to find.
Right.
Um, and so the need for these type of educators is not going away. It's actually growing, and I think that's one of the key components that in our system, educational system, we really need to address quickly because the shortages are there and they don't appear to be going away anytime soon. And to me, that kind of stems from the very beginning, from students after they graduate and wanting to pursue a degree. In our position, we try to look at this from outside of the box. What can we do to recruit individuals that possibly might not think that education was for them, but they might have it in them once they actually get to experience it and explore it a little bit more. And it's a little bit challenging to maintain that approach, just because, as you know, a lot of new teachers tend to leave this field within 5 years or 10 years.
Right.
And it's unfortunate because during those first initial years, that's when you're really learning and honing in your skills. And by the time you're ready to call it a quits and change professions, I mean, you have already acquire a lot of skills that are needed in order to provide the additional support for students. So yeah, teacher recruitment is fundamental, and creating those pipelines is essential for every district to be able to be successful in providing the needs for the students.
I totally agree that nobody starts early enough with the recruiting process. And you mentioned that early recruitment at universities, and I'd even advise it if you're a district or a school that doesn't have some kind of mechanism in that 9th through 12th grade space about grow your own teachers. How do we introduce teachers or kids to this teacher field? Then you're kind of too late a little bit because there are people or kids or students right now in the system that everybody shows up every day to work within that have tremendous potential for
Yes.
being teachers. And if districts don't have an approach to start the conversation with them, I agree with you. I think the recruiting process has started too late already, right?
Yeah.
Because they're walking around your hallways and classrooms right now, future teachers. So that's a fantastic point you bring up. I really appreciate it. So certainly bilingual individuals have a lot of options available with whatever career path they may choose, right? So do you have some examples of some initiatives or some strategies that you've either implemented there in your current district or that you've read about or studied that you think would be a great idea to try in this arena of bilingual educator recruitment? What are some specific things that come to mind in terms of initiatives or strategies that you'd like to share?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a little bit of difference in regards to the challenges associated with the districts, especially districts that are smaller or medium sized compared to the larger districts. Obviously, sometimes smaller and medium-sized districts can compete with salaries compared to the larger ones, as well as the location where they're at. So, based on that, sometimes districts have to kind of think outside of the box and try to start recruiting individuals whenever they're in their last year of college, for example, by going to career fairs or even putting in place special agreements with universities that say, hey, invite me in, let me talk to your future graduates, and let me explain the possibilities and the benefits of coming to work for our district, for example. One of the biggest differences that we have been able to successfully do is in the mentoring aspect of it. With every teacher we bring in, new teacher, we provide the mentoring support from a veteran teacher that has been here. And I think that that makes a huge difference, not only for those teachers to feel welcome here in the district, but also being able to fall back on somebody that has been through some of their experiences before, that they can provide caring and supported advice that they might use. So within that, here locally, one of the things that we also try to do is to expand internationally. So in our district, we have been able to successfully put together agreements of collaboration with universities outside of the country. So and it's a partnership because without them, it would be very difficult to find those candidates that are interested in coming here. It kind of makes it like a circle. It would be fantastic for a university to be able to provide this support to their graduates, saying like, "Hey, we're going to provide you some training before you even have this job, so that in the event that you do get this position, you already feel comfortable moving to a different country, a different city, as well as having the support that you're going to be needing there. So our role here is twofold. It's not just to finding the teachers, but also helping them find a place to live here, for example, being able to provide them with cultural relevant events that they can feel welcome and to the community as well. So we partner up with a lot of businesses in our community to also provide that assistance that a lot of people don't think that they're going to be needing until they actually get here.
There's so many things to consider with recruitment and retention, with the district culture and induction programming. What are we doing to welcome these folks to our system? Maybe there's some creative opportunities within career ladder or beyond the day stipends or things of that nature to kind of help in that salary arena is something that I've seen and read about. But really, the strategy must go way beyond that because this culture piece, this connection, this relationship element with support is so essential to workforce happiness, right? For
Absolutely.
lack of a better word. As
Yeah.
we wrap up here, again, I appreciate your time to share your thinking. And I love the chance to collaborate with educational leaders across the country. Tons of insight comes out of these conversations. And I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the chat today. Uh, it's been a great opportunity to talk and learn a little bit more about Title I, Title III, learn a little bit about bilingual teachers and some of those challenges and some of those strategies that districts and schools can maybe think about. I also want to thank Van Learning for hosting this collaboration. We certainly couldn't have this opportunity to collaborate and have the discussion around some approaches that we can think about to help best kids and families without Van Learning support and coordinating the effort. So thanks for being here today. I really appreciate you.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for this opportunity.